Hi, good morning, guys. Welcome to Keeping It Real. I'm Michelle Carpenter, and as you know, on these wonderful connections that I have with the most wonderful human beings, today I have a very special guest. His name is Rob Gutro, and Rob is an author. And I'm going to read a little bit about Rob before Rob says hi. Rob Gutro is an author, paranormal investigator, and medium with inspired ghost tracking of Maryland. Since he was a child, he could receive messages from ghosts or spirits who have crossed over. As a scientist, he also provides some scientific explanations about how energy is the baseline for the afterlife and the medium that entities use to communicate. In 2005, Rob's late puppy passed and inspired Rob to write his first book and enabled him to communicate with pets. Rob participates in paranormal investigations, helps ghosts cross over, and has provided countless messages from people or pets as ghosts or spirits. He lived in a haunted house too. That's exciting. Oh, Rob, can you just unmute, please? I don't know why it's just muted you. There we go. Welcome to Keeping It Real. And gosh, we have a lot to talk about. So I'm just going to let you go. First of all, congratulations on your books. Please tell us more about your book and the awards that you've won.
Thank you, Michelle. Well, it's great to be here. And uh, my Pets in the Afterlife free book, Messages from Spirit Dogs, won an International Book Award for the third year in a row, which is crazy to me. But the Book Authority um, picked it as one of the best books on grief and loss. So
Wow.
I'm glad it's helping. And this year, I just released my Pets in the Afterlife 4 book for cats, Messages from Spirit Cats, because they need an equal time.
Wow. And as I was discussing with you before I pressed record, a very good friend of mine, we were chatting yesterday and we were both sobbing our heart out because she had had an animal for 16 years, a beautiful little dog, a Jack Russell. So,
Mm.
and she had passed over. So, explain to us first the science behind this. Pretty intrigued because as a medium myself, um, I'm sort of self-taught along the way, and if somebody had to ask me scientifically how this works, I'd probably just drop my mouth open and say, I have no idea, which doesn't build confidence in anybody that comes to me as a
It's
client.
kind of disturbing. So in my day job, I'm a meteorologist, I'm a scientist. So I had to kind of make sense of how my gift works and how the afterlife works. So I can reckon it by the science of energy. And the science of energy, there's a law called the law of conservation of energy, which states that energy can't be destroyed, only transformed. So what I've come to find out is that the physical energies within us, that is, if you think of cell splitting, if you think of how we measure our thoughts as little electrical impulses, that energy has to go somewhere after we pass, after the physical body passes. So it combines with our memories from this life, our knowledge that we acquired, and our personalities. And then we make a choice. We make a choice to stay earthbound at a fixed location of our choosing, or we cross over and join the energies of the other side, the cosmos, heaven, paradise, Valhalla, whatever you want to call the other side. So a ghost is earthbound in a fixed location, and a spirit has crossed over. And spirits can communicate with us anywhere, anytime, any place in the world.
Wow. Thank you for that because you've actually just clarified something. Last night, I went to a breath workshop, and uh, first of all, an energy of a friend of mine from South Africa came through, and I was thinking about her. She's still living in South Africa and she's in a physical body. But I know that her daughter, as a teenager, has been through a real um, intense trauma. They found that her friend had hung herself, and I think she was maybe 15 or 16 years old. So it was so fascinating because, first of all, my friend's energy had come to me while I was in this breath workshop, and then the young girl who had, because I kept seeing somebody who had hung themselves, and I was like, who are you? And then she showed me that she was the young girl, she was the friend, which I didn't know her at all. And I said, well, what is it you want? What would you like? And she said, I haven't gone back to the light. I'm lost. Does that resonate? Is that what happens with a ghost? Because in that moment, and I'm getting goosebumps as I'm sharing this with you, because that's hasn't happened for me or to me before, And I went, okay. And I just opened up a pathway and I said, it's okay, sweetheart. I was just talking to her in a very calm way. And she actually asked me to connect with this friend of mine to talk to the daughter, because they were very close friends. So that's the difference between a ghost and a spirit.
Yeah, that's what I've defined them as, because they're really they're both energy entities with our memories and personality. But I found that ghosts decide to stay in a fixed location. Now, because she just passed, she has the ability to connect with other energies before she gets stuck in a certain place. That's what I found as a paranormal investigator. And I
Yes.
don't know how long that is until they get stuck, but that's what I found.
And is the stuckness because what's the difference in somebody taking their lives who find maybe Earth too intense and somebody who passes over from old age or disease? Is there a difference in where they go after they've left their physical body?
From what I found, no. Um, Sometimes people who will take their own life will stay behind on purpose, thinking that they've committed some horrible act, and they don't deserve to cross over. And I have found that everybody deserves to cross over because there's nothing but love and peace and acceptance on the other side.
Mhm.
And those that stay behind really regret it because they're trapped. And they're trapped. What I liken a ghost as being trapped in an isolation prison cell for their eternity, unless they're lucky enough to meet a medium who can help them cross over.
Okay, so, gosh, where to from here? I have so many questions going on in my mind.
It's
Okay.
kind of complicated.
um, well, often like friends or clients would say to me, my mom passed over recently, but I can feel them. I can feel them. For those that are watching this, how do they know? What are the signs? Even with pets, what are the signs that we can receive as human beings to know that there is that they're a continuation? They've just left their physical bodies.
Gosh, there's lots of signs. So usually when a person passes, they try to communicate pretty quickly that they're okay on the other side. That's my experience. My own dad did that. Um, Often they will try and come into dreams. Dreams are the easiest way to communicate because when we're awake, we tend to discount whatever signs they're trying to send us. We're taught to think logically. And as a scientist, I'm also taught to think logically, but on the
Yes,
other hand, I have to put that aside.
yes,
Go, okay,
yes.
no.
How do you manage that, just by the way?
Well, I've learned that there's no such thing as a coincidence when it comes to spirits.
Okay.
So spirits will make crazy things happen at a certain time, at a certain place, having us look at a certain way. So, for instance, we may see someone that looks like someone that passed. I remember meeting a woman who said that her mother had passed the 2 weeks before she met me, and she said the week after my mother passed, I saw a woman that looked just like my mother driving a car, and she said I actually was in my car and I followed her for about a mile until I realized, wait a minute, I'm going to scare her. She
Yes,
just looks like my mother, and
yes.
she wanted to know why that would be, why she would see that person. And I said, that's just because your mother just wants you to let you know that she's still very much around, but she's okay on the other side.
Wow. Okay. And okay, so spirit animals, okay. W- I'd love, love, love to talk about the grieving process, and this is what you've mentioned in your book. Um, how can you help anybody in any way, true or form, experience massive loss, besides walking through it with them, besides, because there's been a lot of loss. I don't know if you've noticed that in your field of work, not only with animals, but with humans.
Yes.
There's been a huge amount of people that I'm most certainly realizing that over time, you hear about, that 6 degree of separation comes to mind.
Mhm.
And it's actually now sort of like 3 degrees of separation. Oh, did you hear about so and so? Or, so and so has taken their life or whatever, because it just feels like through these massive evolutionary times that we're all going through, that a lot of humans are battling to stay. So,
Yes.
for those of who have lost anybody in these last few years and in their lifetime, how do you work with anybody who is grieving?
Well, I let them know, first of all, I'm actually not a grief counselor, but I am a medium and I can give them signs or explain to them what signs to look for from their person or their pet so that they can actually take comfort from that and lessen their grief in that way. Um, in in my last two pets books, I actually consulted with professionals who deal with people in deep grief, and there are chapters in each book, one from a clinical psychologist and the other one from a social worker who deals with people with grief, and they offer different things. Um, I also added what I did after our dogs passed. Now I have four dogs on the other side who have passed, and one of them I call my heart dog. Her name was Dolly. She's a Weimaraner. She's on the cover of my Pets in the Afterlife 3 book. And she and I had an incredible connection. I always knew what she wanted to do. She always knew what I was going to do. Um, and just amazing. So when she passed away, I was an emotional wreck. People think that even though we're mediums, that we can still cope with the physical death. And I'm the first one to admit that no, I was an emotional train wreck, Um,
Yeah.
uh, but she came to me pretty much right away.
Did you
She
ask
came,
her to come to you, or was it just something? Were you already in your gifts? Were you already a medium at the time, or was it when you were younger?
it was just 2 years ago, so
Oh, okay, okay.
yeah,
Wow,
2020. So my medium abilities came came out when I was 13 years old.
wow,
That,
okay.
that's decades ago.
I think you're lying. You look you're like in your 20s. I thought you're in your 20s, Rob.
Oh no, it's bad lighting. It's all good. No,
Wow.
that was a long time ago. So I'll backtrack a bit.
Please do.
When I was when I was 13 years old, my grandfather appeared to me in full color. I was home with the family dog, and he scared the daylights out of me.
I'm sure.
I was so scared. I ran outside with the dog and waited for my parents to come home. And when my parents came home, I had a great relationship with both of them. I told them what happened, and my mother said, "Okay, we need to talk." She had the gift too, but she was afraid to use it.
Wow. That's incredible.
And then she told me her father, the one that appeared to me, also had the gift. So
Gosh.
I learned a whole lot at 13 years old.
Yeah, that's like, whoop, here we go. This is your life, bud.
Yes. And my brothers, my older and younger brother, they didn't get the gift. Um, but I let it slide until my puppy passed. And then he reawakened everything and he kind of blew the doors off it. And he taught me all the ways that pets will communicate. And that he became the driving force for me to write my first book to help others.
Wow. So,
So
so please continue. Yes, I'd love to
I have
hear
a
it.
whole so I have a whole list of ways that spirits, pets will communicate with us. But you asked about the grieving process.
Yes.
Um, One of the things that I did was to share on social media that my dog had passed and I was in a very difficult place. And just the outpouring of love and support. and sympathy. That really meant so much to me. And I would encourage other people to do the same thing.
Mm.
Also, if you know somebody whose pet passed, donate to an animal rescue in the pet's name.
Wow.
That's a great way to help a living pet. Consider adopting another pet when you're ready,
Mm-hmm.
because our pets in spirit, I found, really want us to adopt another pet. And because they know that we have so much love to give because they've passed, we still have that love to give. And that would be a great way to honor them. I will say in a couple of readings though, Michelle, I've done, some of the pets, the cats and dogs, will tell me that they want the pet parent to only adopt another pet of the opposite sex because they don't want it to be the only male or the only female in the family. So that came up.
That's classic. Wow. You know, that's something so fascinating that you've actually said because we're led to believe, or I'll make it about me. I've been led to believe that when we've put a and I say this respectfully because I was called out on this yesterday, put a pet down. And this friend of mine said to me, especially living here in New Zealand, that's what farmers do. If the dog is not working for the farm anymore, they take the dog and they put the dog down. And she said the dog's passed over. Yeah, it's not. It's quite harsh, even hearing that,
Yeah.
but it's fact. And so anybody that's perhaps feeling this or feeling a little bit triggered about this, know that it's part of the reality that of I suppose I just feel for the farmer because that can't be easy. My heart
Yeah.
immediately goes, whew, but anyway, I'm going off on a tangent, but oh gosh, now my tangent now I've got to bring myself back. See, this is what happens. My apologies, Rob.
No, that's
um,
good.
but it's so and this is part of the not only the loss but the grieving of when is a good time. When you're connecting with a pet that has passed over, when is it a good time? Because I was led to believe that wait, let the grieving process happen. And this happened with one of our animals that I had put down. He had hip dysplasia, and then we immigrated to New Zealand from South Africa, and I couldn't talk about him for
Mhm.
almost 2 years. It was like, whew, like every time somebody mentioned his name or I looked at his photo, and then a friend said to me, just wait until you can talk about him easily, and then you'll be ready. Because what she said to me was, and her suggestion was, energetically, I would be getting another dog, but have not grieved the loss of the other dog.
Mhm.
And and she said it wouldn't be fair energetically for the new dog to come into our family. Now, does that feel or resonate for you in any level? Is that a good thing?
Sure. Yeah, sure. That makes sense because you have to work through your grief before you can adopt. I think I that totally makes sense to me.
Okay.
Otherwise, you you won't be able to pay total attention to an adoptee, a new adoption. So yeah, that's
Okay.
great advice.
Okay. So the grieving process. How would you recommend, besides reaching out on social media, how do you recommend to anybody to work through their grief? Because grief is love.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, what I did was I went back through the pictures of my dogs over time. And I remembered the great memories and I watched them age. And it, one of the most difficult reasons, one of the reasons it's most difficult rather to deal with a pet loss is that psychologically we've raised them like children. We
mm,
raise them like human children. And I've read some studies on this. And what they've found is that because we raise them like human children, we expect them to survive us, just
mm-hmm,
like human children. But
mm-hmm.
they don't. Their lifespan is only between 10 and 20 years if we're lucky. Um, so that's why it's hard. I mean, I always tell people that we take them to school just like human children. We teach them how to go to the bathroom. We take them to the vet when they're sick. We teach them routine. They know our habits. They know dinner time. We teach them to play well with others, just like human children.
So
We,
true.
we will sing to them sometimes. We'll read to them sometimes. We'll sit and watch TV with them. And I
So true.
and I tell people that the only difference between a human child and a pet child is that pet children will not grow up and marry someone you don't like and move away.
Hmm.
Right?
That is so, yeah, yeah. I know. I'm like going, tick, yep, I do that, I do that, I do that. And I talk to my animals like they're going to talk back to me, and like sometimes they give me a look like, really? She's on a tangent again. But yep, they don't move out. Do you think we'll evolve or they'll evolve? Um, but how, okay, so here's, I think, for me, this would be maybe a challenging question to ask and answer.
Mhm.
How do you know, besides old age, when it's a good time, when the dog's body starts to let its spirit's ready to go, okay? But through old age, and the reason why I'm asking this because I had a friend who, said the Buddhists believe that every soul knows when to leave the physical body to go
Mhm.
back into the light, and her one animal was he was older, and she gave him the most beautiful ceremony, and my first rescue ability was just take it to the vet. The poor kid, the poor dog, the poor kid. You see, I've just taken on exactly what you said. The poor dog is suffering. Is it true though? Do they suffer when they come through you? Do they? How do you communicate, and what do they say when they come through? And are they ever in suffering?
They are.
Okay.
So there are a couple of aspects to your question there. So number one, what I've learned is that we really need to pay close attention to our pets to figure out if it's the right time. If they stop eating, if they stop interacting with the other pets, if they stop doing regular habits, if they start to isolate themselves from you. In 2020, in May, our dog Franklin, he was 16 and a half, he was a dachshund, and he always stayed with us in every room. He followed us everywhere. But he was dealing with a spinal issue. His one of the discs in his spine was slipping, and it was paralyzing him.
Wow.
So he could barely walk, and he was in pain, and he was on 3 different pain medications a day. And so one night, when we knew it was close to the end, we picked him up and brought him into our TV room, and we put him in his bed and made him comfortable. He found the strength to get up with his front legs and drag himself out of the room. And he was, we were watching him and we were standing next to him, but he didn't want us to touch him because he would look at us and he would growl. So we said,
Wow.
okay. So we let him do it. We went in the other room and he laid down in his own bed away from us. And that's how we knew it was time.
Wow.
So that was a pretty blatant signal.
Wow, what a beautiful story. Gosh.
So I forget the second part of your question.
Hold on, I need to get a tissue. Wow. Sure.
That was a hard thing. So yeah, just really pay attention to your pets,
They give
and
us they give us signs. They actually show us signs.
they do, and rely on your veterinarian too. I mean, I called our veterinarian too, and I told them what was going on, and she said he when they distance themselves, that's really a sign that they just want to be alone, and they want to pass.
So would you say it's our human need to keep them alive and to, because I personally, I know that I don't like to see anybody suffer and let alone an animal because they obviously can't voice. So they show us, don't they? They show us, as you've just explained, they
They
show
do.
us that they're in pain. And I think that that's sometimes the challenge for most of us as human is that we may feel lonely and we want to keep them around for our own needs. Yet it's
True.
a very selfless and unconditionally loving act of kindness, I believe, to actually let them
Let
go
them know.
peacefully. Yes, let them go home.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I've learned by communicating with pets that when we make that decision and help them cross out of pain, we have learned the lesson that they were here for, which was they taught us unconditional love.
Yes.
So that's the most powerful, most courageous thing we could do for our pet out of love. Um, Now I remember the other part of the question.
Okay, good. Because I'm trying to remember. Thank goodness one of us is holding it together today.
Well, I guess I got lucky. So you asked me if they ever convey pain, and they
That's
do. They do when they come through. Um, what's What's interesting is that they use that to help identify themselves.
right.
So, so for instance, I've had quite a lot of cats come through, and suddenly they will share like pain in my kidneys, and I will know it's renal failure that they were experiencing in life.
Okay.
Um, I will be, so I do all my readings when I'm sitting in front of the computer. I do them by email, looking at a picture, knowing their name, and any questions the pet parent has. That's how I do it.
Okay.
Because I have to listen, and I can't do it when I'm talking to a pet parent because I can't. It's too much for me. Um, so I can be sitting in my chair and I will feel suddenly my hips ache and my lower back hurt. And I may feel my leg go numb, like my right leg, for instance, um, or my hand will hurt, or and my elbow,
Wow.
and I'll say my front leg because I have to
Yeah.
communicate the way a pet is.
Yes. Yes.
Um, haven't had any tail problems though, so that's okay.
Okay. Yeah, true.
But um, but seriously, so they've shared heart problems, they've shared cysts and growths and cancer, all kinds of things. Um, one dog came through when I was doing a reading, and I kept scratching my head, and I'm like, what is going on? Why is my head so itchy? So I wrote that to the pet parent, and she wrote me back, and she said, ever since when we adopted our dog, he had a really bad skin rash, skin disorder. And all through his life, he was treated for a skin disorder, and he would scratch all the time, especially at his head.
Wow.
And I thought, okay, that was a first time for me, and that just happened actually, like
Wow.
about a month ago. But
And what are the kind of messages that the pets want to convey? Do they pick up do they pick up on what's going on in the home? Do they share? Oh, okay. So they're like, you need to stop fighting. Like, you guys drove me mad.
yeah, they do. So they visit after they pass. They visit, and if you have a dog or cat in your home, I have found that physically, the physiology of a dog and cat allows them to see and hear spirits. We're visiting, and earthbound ghosts if your place is haunted. But so dogs and cats have different cones and rods in their eyes than humans do. Those cones and rods in their eyes enable them to see faster movement. As a paranormal investigator, we use high-speed cameras to catch an image of a ghost or a visiting spirit. Dogs can see them head on, cats also.
Wow.
Um, Dogs and cats also have a different physiology in their hearing. If you think about a dog whistle,
Mm-hmm.
we can't hear a dog whistle because it's
Mm-hmm.
at a different frequency than the human ear can pick up, but dogs hear it. As a paranormal investigator, we use digital recorders to record sound in different frequencies that we can't hear.
Wow.
Dogs can hear them. Cats can hear them. So dogs and cats can hear spirit when they visit. The
Wow.
only thing that I found that when a spirit animal visits on a living animal, sometimes the living animal will get freaked out because dogs and cats rely on scent. It takes way too much energy to generate a scent. If they're going to appear visibly and audibly to a pet, they don't usually have enough energy to manufacture their scent. It's one or the other. So sometimes your pet may freak out. They may be looking at something, staring at something. And by the way, spirits don't have to stand on the ground. They can stand up here. They can stand above the ground.
Yeah, that's a great fact to share.
Yeah. So, so
Wow.
they may, you may have a cat that stares at something for a minute and then runs from the room and you don't see anything there.
Yes.
Well, it's very likely that it's a spirit visiting. And one of the ways to know that if it's spirit visiting is usually they visit on birthdays, anniversaries, and holidays. And pets know those days because our emotional energy is higher. And
Yes.
as energy, they can read our emotional energy just like they do when they're alive.
Yes. Yes. That is, you've answered so many questions, and my head's just spinning at the moment. And in terms of, I watch, so we've got a three-legged, beautiful border collie cross that we adopted.
Oh,
And
wow.
I watch her with the energy between I've got two children and my husband, and I watch her with the energy between all of us. And she's different with all of us. My son, who has a huge amount of energy, and he's 13, and 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 he drives us mad because he's just full of beans. But she's like this all the time. She's like, she just wants to play, and they are the best buddies. Like if we go for a walk and Cade, our son, is with us, we can guarantee that she's not going to want to come with us. She wants to be with the fun. She's like, I don't want to be with you two. You two are old, and but it's fascinating to hear what you're saying, because it's the one thing that I've come to know as a medium as well, that they even when we're walking with her named Star, she will pick up on something and she'll actually lie down, like if I'm walking at night, and it's pretty safe for us to walk at night and where we live in our town. But if she's picked up on something and it could be meters away, without me even realizing, she'll lie down and she'll try and get me back to go. This has happened twice actually, where she's like, "No, Mom, I'm not going any further." And when I've actually like sort of paid attention to where I'm at or my surroundings, there might be like a car that's just hovering, like a random car that's got two people in it. And I've never questioned it. I've gone, okay, I've got to listen to her
That's
and
great.
turn around. Yeah, they have that sixth sense, say, that we are born with, but I think we can most certainly lose it a long time.
Yeah, I think we buried it.
We buried it, yes. So,
Yeah.
so just a question on you and your upbringing. You said that you've got the gift that your mom had and your grandfather had, but your brothers don't.
Yes.
How come? Do you know the reason for that, perhaps? Did they bury it?
They may have. I don't know. I'm a lot more emotional than both of them.
Okay,
And I find that people who are more emotional too, or who are more sensitive um, in emotional ways, are more open to developing the ability. Um,
okay. That makes sense.
yeah. I cry in commercials.
Oh, I love
Yeah,
that.
I
I
do.
love that. Thank you for sharing that. That's beautiful.
I can watch a TV show, and I was watching one of my favorite TV shows here is Superman and Lois,
Okay.
and Lois Lane is going through cancer treatment on the TV show, and I was watching that the other night, and I was crying, and it's very emotional, and my partner, of course, would just go, "What is the matter with you?"
I love that. Thank you for sharing that, because that's vulnerability is such a strength.
Mhm.
And that's open. That's just being open in my understanding of the world. Like our heart is just like, blah, here we go. Um, okay, now I'm going to flick the switch to Paranormal Investigator.
Oh, okay.
How did you get into that?
Well, after I wrote my first book, which is called Ghosts and Spirits Explained, explaining the differences that we just talked about and the energies they use. I did a lecture. I was invited to do a talk about the book at a paranormal group, Inspired Ghost Tracking of Maryland. And I've been right there. They asked me to be a medium on the team, and I never left.
Really?
That
Wow.
was 13 years ago.
Okay. 13
So
is a
one
very
of
powerful number for you, by the way.
it's a what?
13 is a powerful number.
Is
13,
it?
well, this is just my surmising, but at the age of 13, your mom, you had your gift, your
Oh,
grandfather appeared to you, and
that's
13 years ago, you were
I didn't think about
invited. No, I don't know what that means anyway. That's just my little 2 cents. That might not mean anything.
Oh,
Um,
no, it's interesting. I never even put that together. So,
Yeah, yeah. But so how did you develop into the paranormal? Like how did you speak about the cameras and you speak about the like it sounds so intriguing. Like where do you set up?
so so we have two teams on the paranormal group. One is a technical team. They use high-speed cameras, infrared cameras, video cameras, digital recorders, thermometers, which I can explain scientifically why there's cold spots. Um, nobody else has ever explained it, but
You do, yeah.
K2 meters, which measure energy fields and energy because ghosts and spirits are energy entities with personalities and knowledge. Um, and then there's the mediums, myself, and there's another medium on the team, Troy. When we both started. Troy worked with me in my meteorology job, and I kind of came out of the the medium closet to him, if you will. And I told him about my abilities. And he said, "Oh my gosh, I've had these abilities and I don't know what to do with them." So he wound up joining the group, and we have solved countless cases over 13 years together with the team. Um, it, it, In fact, I wrote one of my 10 books is called Case Files of Inspired Ghost Tracking. So for anybody who wants to know what it's like to go on a paranormal investigation, you will come along on every investigation that we've been on in this book.
Really?
Mm, yeah. And so sometimes I also sketch out what a
Yeah.
ghost looks like.
Yes.
Um, so you'll find those in my books, except for the pets books. I don't need to do that in pets, but um, all my other books, I have sketches of the ghosts that I've met. And in one particular case, I called it the double murder ghost investigation, where we encountered two women who were ghosts in a home, one an older, one a younger one. They turned out they were brutally murdered in the home by someone who was renting a basement apartment. That particular case turned out to be true 100%. All the impressions that Troy and I got were verified by a police report after the investigation.
Wow.
Um, and we captured an orb, which is the most simple form a ghost could take. It's a round ball of light, but it usually has colors and designs in it. And when we blew the orb up, my partner, who's also on the team, he noticed the face. It turned out it was the face of one of the women who was
Wow.
earthbound as a ghost. It's crazy. It's in the book.
Sure,
Yeah.
that's incredible. So are you asked to get involved in these cases because they are unsolved? Is that part of the investigative work?
Actually, it's from people who contact the Inspired Ghost Tracking group and think they may have a haunting in their home. So the
Okay.
murder investigation was very unusual.
Okay.
um, but that came because a family of four was experiencing crazy things like shadow people and blankets pulled off their beds, and the children were scared, and um, we had no idea what we were going into, and that's what it was.
And did those two ghosts, those two women come in, were they talking to yourself and Troy throughout this whole experience? So
They
that was the
were.
connection that you had?
They were. And what was interesting is that it took us a while. We were there several hours. It took us a while to figure out that we were talking to two different different women who were ghosts.
Yes.
And when I had asked Troy the age of the woman he was talking to, he said she was in her 30s. And I said, the woman I'm talking to is in her early 60s.
Gosh.
And the woman in her 60s conveyed what she did for a living. And that turned out to be true. She showed me a picture of her chopping vegetables and food at a bar. And she worked in a bar.
Wow.
And yeah. So it's a crazy thing. So that's in the case files of inspired ghost tracking. That's one of the many cases.
Okay, so was a part of, sorry, I'm lingering on about that story, but did you then release them back into the light after you had solved the case?
So here's, yeah, unfortunately, no, because the family, once we put everything together and put the report together and we figured it out, and then we were able to get the police report, it took like a month or a month and a half to get that police report. The family moved out. We were never able to get back in.
Wow,
And
okay.
it's tragic.
Oh, okay, okay.
But but the ghosts wanted to stay there because they wanted to protect anybody in that house from the murderer, and the murderer is doing double life in prison.
My goodness, that's incredible.
Yeah, it's
It
crazy.
must be so fulfilling when, your crazy life is actually, your crazy work is actually creating that. I mean, that's incredible. Wow.
It
I've
is.
heard of this kind
Yeah.
of stuff before, but I sort of shied away from it. I was like, is it real? I'm not too sure if it's real, but it
I
is real. It's so incredible to hear. Exactly. And it's, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's just phenomenal because people like yourselves are very much, I can only imagine, in need of solving those kinds of unresolved issues and cases, especially for families who are not too sure. Because the one thing we want in life is closure, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. But whether it's human closure or animal closure.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's why I do what I do. And um, you know, I realized that Buzz, my dog that passed in 2005, who opened the door for me, he only lived 7 months, but he was here for a tremendous purpose. And that was for me to realize how pets communicate, to teach others and bring healing. So although our pets may live a very, very short life, they're here to teach us something. They each have a mission, and that's important to keep in mind.
And do the pets choose us as much as we choose them? The spirit of the animal?
They do. And one of the things that you may find this funny, that I've learned that our pets in spirit will lead us to the next pet they want us to adopt. So
Ah,
there are several. I have quite a few stories of that, but one of the stories I have is that a woman that I spoke to this summer said that her black and white dog had passed away, and she said she did not want to adopt another black and white dog because she wanted her dog who passed to be the only black and white dog. She didn't want the dog in spirit to think she was replacing the dog. Um, so she set out to find some other color dog. She checked the rescue. She and her husband decided on this medium-sized brown dog. They put in the paperwork, they got approved. They came to pick up the dog. The dog had been adopted by somebody that morning that was not her. And she was devastated. So she asked to see another medium-sized dog. Well, they brought out a black and white dog.
ah.
And she she fell in love with the dog immediately. And she said, so she wrote me and she said, I don't know why this happened. And I said, the reason why is that your dog in spirit wanted you to adopt a dog with similar colors so that you know your dog in spirit is always around from time
Yes,
to time.
yes. Oh, that's incredible. What a beautiful. Do you ever sit back sometimes, Rob, and go, wow, this is my life in this lifetime?
I know, yeah, I do.
And what I love is the fact that you've got the science, with the unknown, because so many of
Yeah.
us are the logical, and people are wanting the science behind, and you combining the two is phenomenal, absolutely incredible.
So so part of that is one thing I didn't explain yet is about the science of energy, how that plays into everything. Because
Yes,
we're
please.
beings of energy, we need energy as ghosts, earthbound, or spirits who've crossed over to get strong enough to communicate. So I've learned there's two kinds of energy that they use. They use physical energies like heat, light, water, and electricity, or they use emotional energies. Spirits of our loved ones who've crossed over use faith, love, and hope, while ghosts use negative emotional energy, which is fear, anxiety, depression, and anger, to get strong enough to communicate. So if you go in a place that's haunted, that you know is haunted, and you're feeling anxiety or nervousness, you're fueling that ghost to communicate with you. You're giving them that emotional energy.
Okay. And do they attach as entities? Like, let's say you had to come into my home and uh, I'd like to believe it's not haunted, but it's, let's say you pick up on something, you pick up on a ghost or an entity that hasn't. Is it the same? Just by the way, is an entity and a ghost the same? Would it be the same reference?
So I call an energy entity, really the first step after we die, because it has not yet chosen where it's going to go.
Okay.
I don't know what else to call
Okay. Okay. All
it. Yeah.
right. And is that like
Um,
they're kind of like in oblivion and gone, oh, okay, I'm here right now.
yeah,
Okay, okay, all
yeah,
right.
they decide. Um,
And you
and
can see that? You can see when they're in that holding space when they come to you?
usually they've chosen one or the other by the time I connect with them.
Okay, got it.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
So if you had to come into our home and let's say my son's having a moment, okay, like he's had a day at school, and would you be able to sense the energy if there was a ghost that was present, or he might have brought it home from school? Is that a
Mhm.
possibility?
I could sense it, yes. It's very rare that ghosts will attach themselves to a person.
Okay.
I've only encountered that twice in 13 years.
Wow.
And the reason they did that, the reason they attached themselves was they believed that the person they attached themselves to and came home with could help them cross over and find peace.
Ah, okay.
In one of the cases in the Case Files of Inspired Ghost Tracking book, it's called The Case of the Burned Ghost.
Yeah.
And when we investigated this house, um, there was a spirit dog that visited at the same time, but that's a different story. um, uh, one the ghost that came in when the mother of the family came in the door, then suddenly the ghost came with her, and I saw a woman who was in a fiery explosion, and she showed me a melted earring in her ear, and I had to ask the homeowner, and my friend Troy was also there, and he said suddenly he felt like he was on fire. He felt really hot, and he was starting to sweat physically.
Wow.
Um, so we were connecting to this ghost, and she said that makes sense because I work in the burn unit of a hospital. And she said, and I described this woman as a young African American woman, um, who was wearing gold earrings and they melted into her ears. And she said, "Oh my God, I know who that is." And she said she just passed on in my hospital like last week.
Sure.
Um, so she called the hospital, she got the woman's name, and then we were able to address the woman, the ghost, and
She
help
was
cross her
speaking
over.
to you and she just wanted to resolve. But that's also phenomenal because it's such an honoring of yourself and Troy that she chose that lady. That's the way I look at it from a spiritual place, is that I feel incredibly honored every time a client's sitting in front of me and they've asked me to connect with a loved one. I'm like, wow, the loved one has asked me, to be the conduit or to be the voice. And Do you
Yeah,
feel
good.
the same?
I
That you
do.
like you just yeah.
I'm humbled by it.
Very
I
much
really
so. Very, very much so. And so then you allowed her to go back to the light and or not
am.
allowed,
Yeah.
but you
So so we do. Well, we need a lot of humans to living people to connect their emotional energy to open a portal to the other side. Then we call on someone connected to her on the other side to have her cross over. And
wonderful.
every time we cross somebody over, what's weird, and I can't explain this, but we feel a burst of warm air in the room.
Wow.
We can't
Really?
explain it. Yeah.
Gosh.
But one thing I can explain, I mentioned earlier, is cold spots. You know how
Yes.
cold spots are usually associated with ghosts
Okay.
or spirits.
Yes.
Um,
Do you mean
because
spots in
people
the body or just spots of where you walk in?
want we're walking.
Okay.
Like on those paranormal ghost detecting shows or whatever, they carry thermometers and we carry them too. And the reason we carry those is because cold will usually indicate the presence of a ghost. Now, nobody that I know of has been able to explain that scientifically, but I've come up with a theory.
Okay.
So, because ghosts use energy, fast moving molecules of air are warm air. Slower moving molecules of air are cooler air. What I believe is that the ghosts draws on the energy of motion of those molecules. It absorbs the motion, the energy of motion, to get strong enough to communicate. And in doing, causes the molecules to slow down and creates a cold spot where the ghost is.
Incredible. Gosh.
So that's my
So
scientific
that's
explanation.
phenomenal. I love that. And so if I was to walk into a home or you were to walk into a home, not even knowing, let's say you're going to go and meet a new family or new friends, and you get that woof, like, we get that chill.
Yes.
Would I be assuming that that could be because I'm pretty sensitive myself, and I'm beginning to realize that, like, even going into environments that if the energy is very high and loud, all of a sudden I'm loud, blah 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 blah, and I'm like, whoa, like, why am I so loud all of a sudden, and I'm just realizing that I'm just in that space. So is that the feeling or the sensation that you might get that, whoosh, in South Africa we would say somebody, I don't even know why somebody would bring this up, but they used to say, did somebody walk over your grave? Like, as soon as you get that chill up your spine.
Yeah, I've heard that. It, it could be that there you are in the presence of either an earthbound ghost or a spirit who's crossed over who's visiting. Because they
Uh-huh.
both will draw that energy to get strong enough to communicate.
Wow. And
So
out of all your stories in 13 years, I mean, you've shared a few with us today, which has probably been the wackiest, craziest one that you could think of or comes to mind that you and Troy have looked at each other and gone, what the hell? Has has there been any of that, or is it just like, another day?
kind of like another day, but we've dealt with poltergeist activity, which is energy from a living person that simulates a ghost, where and it's usually generated by teenage girls or boys. We've dealt with 4 or 5 cases of that, where one teenage girl, we had to figure this out, and we didn't meet the girls. We only we when we did the investigation and we couldn't find a ghost, we went to the homeowner and said, "Do you have 2 girls? Because you have 2 bedrooms that are look like that girls live in them." And she said yes. And I said, "Does one have emotional issues and going through a lot of stress?" And she said yes. And I said, "Does that particular daughter of yours not like the younger daughter?" And she said yes. And I said, "Okay, well, there you go." She's creating the emotional energy that simulates the activity of what a ghost would appear to be doing.
Gosh.
So yeah, so that was crazy.
And then how did you help that young girl or the mother? Like, or did she have to go and see somebody like yourself? And how do you release that energy?
She had to go get counseling. So
Okay.
she sent the daughter to counseling and she contacted us about 6 months later and she said that all the Paranormal Activity in her younger daughter's room had stopped.
Wow, incredible.
Yeah, just crazy.
It is crazy. I mean, okay, now I keep getting drawn to your beautiful book behind you, Kindred Spirits.
Oh, that's that's a very unique book. Um, so it's about a spirit that came along with my partner when I met him, and it's actually his late partner.
Wow.
So his late partner passed in 1996, and it's somebody I never met in life. And but it turns out that he and I have a lot in common. In fact, we almost share the same birthday, which is just off by 2 days, which is really odd. Um, but so I've grown to know him so much from the other side that he's like a best friend that lives in another part of the country.
Gosh.
And so this book, Kindred Spirits, is all about my experiences with him and crazy things like how he helped me solve the mystery of his own death.
No
Um,
ways.
yeah, how he appeared to us when we got lost in England on vacation. We were in a forested area, and our GPS at the time went haywire, and it was getting dark. And he sent someone who looked exactly as he would have looked had he lived to be in his 50s, just to appear there over the hill. He was driving a Royal Mail truck, and I flagged him down. And when he got out of the truck, I thought I was going to have a heart attack. I thought, oh my God, he looks like the pictures of Ed. And my partner was in the car, and I came back, and I said, this guy's gonna take us out of this forested area. And he said, he looks just like Ed. And we were just flabbergasted. But so those are just two of the stories. But Ed also taught us many things. Like, he's there for our dogs when they pass over. He has special ways, special signs that he uses. He loves coins. So that's a really cool book, Kindred Spirits. And actually, after I published it 4 years ago, he doesn't stop talking. So Kindred Spirits 2 is halfway done.
I love that because it's so real, isn't it? We sometimes you like just like, okay, dudes, we got to sleep. I
Right?
know that you guys are continuing in the light and you're having a fabulous time, but this body's got to sleep. Is that how you talk to him?
I
Like
do.
Ed,
I do.
Ed.
What's funny is
Mm.
some of these things are, of course, not in the book, but what's funny is that he'll tell me, certain things, certain behaviors, and I would say to my partner, I'd say, Ed said that you used to do this and misbehave, this way when you were together, and he's like, I don't like you talking to Ed all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell
It's two
Ed to
against one.
shut up. Yeah. Does your partner ever go, Ed, Ed, stop it, just stop it?
Oh yeah, he does.
And then do you and Ed have like a little chuckle together? Ha ha ha.
We do. It's two against one.
That is so cool. How to manipulate your partner. I think that's your next book.
Exactly.
Speak to spirit. Um, do you have a movie coming up? I have no idea, but I just look at your beautiful books in the background about the afterlife with the animals, and I just feel it's got to be a movie, man. It's just
Oh gosh, no. Nobody knows who I am.
so anybody watching, anybody who knows directors and producers, please contact Rob. I mean, I don't know if that's your thing, but I could just imagine it being this beautiful movie. What a beautiful movie to introduce children, or a book to introduce children to
Mhm.
knowing that there is always, always life after the physical.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah,
that you,
absolutely. I mean, I would love that. I would actually love to see Kindred Spirits be made into a short film because it's quite a crazy story. Um, but I wanted to just briefly talk about a number of ways that people can look for signs from their own pets
Yes,
before I forget, especially for your friend who
thank you.
lost a dog. So we mentioned dreams are the easiest ways, um, but your pets can do other things. They do things they used to do in life. So you may hear a bark or a meow, and it will always sound like it's coming from another room. You may hear nails on the floor. I've heard that. Our dog Franklin barked the day after he passed. We, my partner heard him from the kitchen, and I was outside with the other dogs, and we knew it was Franklin's bark. They get physical sometimes. So you may feel like cats. You may feel them brush against your ankles when you're sitting on a chair. You may feel a dog or a cat curl up behind you on your back when you're in bed, or feel a cat walk across the bed in spirit.
Yeah.
We talked about bringing you to a lookalike. That happens. Sometimes you may actually visibly see them. It's very rare because it takes a lot of energy. You may actually even smell their scent. One woman told me about after her dog passed,
Mm-hmm.
she smelled the scent of a wet dog, and she had a pond in the back of her house, and her dog always came in smelling like wet dog. And after her dog passed, she smelled wet dog, and she said, "Oh my gosh, my dog's here."
Yes.
So, um, we talked about being energy so they can manipulate electricity. Um, when my dad died, you'll love this story. When my dad died, he loved to tease my mother all the time when he was living. So when he passed, there was a light in the hallway of their house where my parents' bedroom was. So every time my mother would come out after my dad passed, every time my mother would come out of her bedroom and come down the hallway, the light would start flashing. And she had it checked by 3 electricians. 3 electricians. She paid 3 electricians to check her light, and they said nothing was wrong with it. And so I told her, I said, it's just dad letting you know. And there were times that I would call her up and she'd be walking down the hallway, and she would be cussing at my father when she picked up the phone to talk to me. And she'd say, "Cut it out."
Oh, that's classic.
I love it.
Oh gosh, well, Ed, thank you for being here today. I'm consciously aware that I know you have a lot to do and you're a busy man. And look, I got the time. I said
Oh
to
my
you,
gosh.
that
I know
is unheard
I
of.
could talk to you. I could talk to you for another hour or two.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. I mean, it's just like we go here and we go here, and I feel like I'm like I have a huge amount of questions that we'll most certainly have to have take two, okay, coming
Okay.
at another time. So thank you for sharing your wonderful wisdom, your heart, um, your truth, and your light, because your light is clearly sharing so much with so many other people. And guys, you can find the book. Please tell everybody where they can find, well, your books. I mean, you have a range of books, and I feel like, for those who are inquiring from science will be keen to buy which book? Which book would they be keen to purchase?
Oh gosh. Well, for Pets in the Afterlife, one will explain the science of it,
Okay,
science of behavior and science of energy. Um, Lessons learned from talking to the dead for people. That's my question and answer guide for all things paranormal.
awesome.
Um, so I have 3 different series of books just for folks.
Yes, go for it, please.
Yeah, Pets in the Afterlife, 1, 2, 3, and 4. um, Ghosts on a Medium's Vacation, which I would love to talk to you about. Um, and also Ghosts and Spirits, which include Kindred Spirits and case files of inspired ghost tracking and so forth. So, yeah.
So, as you can well hear, Ed is incredibly busy, guys, and and I feel like there's another book coming, and another book coming, and another book coming, and another book coming. And how lucky are we to have you share all this knowledge and this wisdom, and share these beautiful stories. And I know I say this every week that I have somebody on. I feel incredibly honored and privileged because I'm learning so much about just life and how
Me
magical,
too.
majestic it is, and and that I'm not as crazy as I used to think I used to be where I go, takes one crazy to see another crazy, and I'm like, ah, okay, that answered a question I had like 6 months ago, you know.
There you go.
So thank you so much for joining us on Keeping It Real, and I look forward to connecting with you again soon.
Okay. Thank you
Have
so
a
much,
wonderful day.
Michelle.
Guys, please comment, go to, where do people find you? I've got your details, which I'll put it on, but please share where people can find you.
Oh,
And
sure.
yeah,
Okay, well, it was a premature goodbye, but so I'm on robgutro.com or petspirits.com. That's my website. I do a blog every week. I do social media posts on Facebook and Instagram and so forth. And you can get me online.
awesome. And your readings that you do for individuals, they can just connect with you and they share a photo and the name, as you said, about the animal. And is it only to do with animals, or do you do other readings as the medium that you are?
I only do animals because people have too many hangups. um,
That's
but yeah, you'll have to watch my website for when I start booking again because I'm booked out so far in advance right now. I had to stop taking, appointments, and I
that
do
doesn't,
charge a small fee, but it's just for my time.
yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all. So thank you for being here today, and just stay with me on the line. I'm just gonna stop recording. Thanks, guys, for joining us, and from my heart to all of you, you know that I love you all, and I most certainly know that love is why we are all here. Have a beautiful day. Bye, guys.